Hi everyone, this is Daisy. I've got a tutorial here for Drawing Fundamentals Level 1 that translates into ages 8 or 9 years old. We're working on the human face. Our subject is the Queen Nefertiti, one of the more famous queens of Egypt. And it is believed that the time that she and her husband, Pharaoh Akhenaten, reigned, that was the wealthiest period of the Egyptian era. She was followed by Tutankhamun. But at this point, let's study the face and understand what to do. Whenever you have to draw something that you've never drawn before, it's a good idea to understand the breakdown of the paper that it requires. What that means is, if you look at the face portion only and take your pencil that you're going to draw with, place it over the tip of the face where before her crown starts to her chin. This would be taken as one count. If you place that above it, the rest of her crown is another head length, and the bottom of her bust, as the sculpture was made into, was another head length. So that means that you really want to give 1/3 of your paper space to the face itself. Now let's move on to our paper. This project is going to be in colored pencils, and I have got a variety of pencils here that I'll be working with. The lighter ones, these three, are going to be for my skin tonals, and the rest of them would be to add details or any kind of color hues to the crown or her bust and everything. The cream will help me a lot in my in her um, jewelry around her neck, as well as the first layer under her crown. So there are reasons for the various shades that I've chosen, but we'll work through them, and I'll give you the colors as we work on them so you can match them up. I'm working with Prismacolor colored pencils, and I also have my black right here. I'm going to draw with a 6B pencil, so it's prominent in the video. Again, when you look at your paper, remember we studied her image and we said 3 spaces. So if you break this paper space down, and I'm going to draw dark so that you all can see what we're doing. And so this space is all I can give to her actual face. And that's what I want to remember. Now let's start with her face itself. Notice that her crown will tip backward, so we want room here. Hence we should push her face, and her right eye should come about here, not the middle, about here, because her crown will slant that way, her body will taper downward. Now, starting with the eye, come downward a little bit more, starting from the inside of her eye, curve, tear duct, whenever you make the iris, study the whites around the eye that are remaining. How much part is left? That is a way better way of drawing in the iris versus just going ahead and putting in a circle. She has a dominant lid, the highest point being directly above the iris. So I would mark that off, and I would start, and I would put the line downward, downward. Her eyebrow will start from right here, and it will take on the shape of her eye. Right there. So we're not trying to make anything more than that for right now. And let's move on to her nose. The tip of her nose, if you look at your picture, I would mark it down to about being right about here. So at that point, I can bring down a straight line for right now, just to keep it simple. And I would round it off to make the bottom of the nose. So let's redo this thing again, just so as we have clarity. We don't have to join the line, but it makes for a lot more ease to make the nose just right there, downward. Her nostril would be right here, right there. Now, on the same level as the tear duct, you're going to go across to the other side of the nose, touch it at the same point, make her other eye, and notice that this eye comes down just enough. but it doesn't go out, it doesn't turn in, just downward. The bottom of the eye, right there. And we don't show an iris in here at this point, but I'm going to go ahead and put in where we would see it typically if we were to get an image of it. I would drop the corner of the eye a little bit more to match up. There we go. Now again, her prominent eyelid right there, and it joins up here. And her eyebrow goes from here right there. We can get rid of this line. The line of this nose was only to help us make our nose itself and to understand how to draw her face. But now that we've given it in, we can make sure that her eyebrows match up to our image. Now, once you've done this part, our next part is to connect the eyebrow to the eye and the eye down, but we also have our mouth to make. So let's move downward to the mouth. Right under this nose area over here, you are going to leave 1 and 2 lines, and this is where you're going to make the dimple of her lip. 1 and 2. Now, the right side of her mouth is more visible, so we can draw it, but I would start from the middle of her mouth. I would make the same dimple and I would go out. Then I would bring the lines to connect. So this gives me one side of it. The other side would be way shorter, just right here. Turn over there. Right side longer, left side shorter because her view is partial. The bottom of the lip straighter, no dimples here, coming out from the back. There. So you have this, and you can of course amend whatever if you want to. You are able to readjust whatever you need. Now go step by step to draw the face itself. You can get rid of this top line for right now, because remember, we just did a paper management step, which means we wanted to see how much space we needed to give different areas. So from the eyebrow to the eye, you're going to create a curve just like this. From under the eye to the corner of the mouth, the highest point on the cheek comes in about here. So you're going to go out, chisel it. The chin falls in right here, as we had discussed, so I can get rid of this line at this point. So the chin comes down right there. I don't keep drawing at a stretch because I keep studying where would the next part be, and so that holds me back a little bit, and I want to just check that I'm doing the right thing before I start making more lines. So there we are, the chin straight for a little bit, and then it'll start angling up. The ear goes sideways, so we can see it starting from here. Another way to measure how far would I make the ear is, you can check on the measurement of the face. So that means if you put your pencil against the back of her eye to the front of her eye, just like this, hold it, and then just mark it off. That's where you would actually be able to start the ear. That's one way of kind of understanding where would you place it. A lot of times it confuses people, and you have to be able to understand what to do with it and not struggle. So that the bottom of the ear would come in here to where we would. There's a little bit of a damage to the bust as we see it. So we're going to go ahead and make it as we see it right now. There we go. Now, going in from the top of the ear to the eye right here, this is where the crown curve comes in. So we'll only draw that part. From the top of this eyebrow to about here, that's where it's almost as if they made her wrap her head before the crown went on her head to protect her skin, I assume. So you have this. The crown angles backward, so you can easily create this. And then from behind the ear, it angles backward as well. It seems to spread more on the top side than the bottom side. So if we have a straight line right here, we would just use that as a guide to the back area and just make a line right there. So that would help us create that part. The curve that you made over here was for the wrap. Now let's make the curve for her crown, which is a parallel one. And you would use the same thing to kind of create the top of her crown. Notice that I did not try to shorten it. You have to try to maintain the aesthetics in the whole thing. That's very important as you draw people and faces. If you run short on space, as I obviously did, I wouldn't try to contract it. I would draw it to size still and not mess with that. So come back to the face and the nose over here. Let the nose now connect up to this line right here. So we would bring down our nose for Queen Nefertiti like this from both sides, and that would give us the bone structure to her nose. Now from the ear, drop down a diagonal line and then let this line come to connect to her chin. Creates her, finishes the face for us. Moving down, come behind her ear right over here and give the curve to her neck. Right there. Chin, come back inside towards the end of the mouth. That's where the inner side of her chin. Remember, it feels like she's turning her head in some way or the other. And we have a slight under chin that we can see over here. So we would show it. Queen Nefertiti was known for her beauty. Even in today's world, major beauty companies creating beauty products use her as a source of inspiration to create, to talk about the colors and things like that. So you would only imagine as to what kind of an impact she had when she was reigning and what the effect of her beauty was on people if she's still talked about even today. So we created the body. Down over here, this is where the bust ends. Right there. And on the other side, it's way shorter. Sitting at the nape of her neck. So I'm going to readjust this line. I'm going to let this line go in and get rid of this part here. And right at the bottom over here is her medallion, the neck, the center of her neck, and the way that it sits. And there would be the base drawing to our face for Queen Nefertiti. We now want to add in her stripe on her crown as well as her symbol on her crown. The symbol sits right about here. So you want to make sure it comes above her nose, short line. Just draw the center first. Try not to go for the balance of the symbol to begin with. You have to anchor it first before you do anything else to it. Then, following the curve of our line here, the base of her crown, we would use that to create our second line. That would be the pattern that wraps around her head right there and coming in over here. So now we have everything that we need. Now, the thing about drawing it in pencils is we don't want the black to show where it's not needed on her skin and tones. So we want to erase away a lot of this and work on it. So given that this is a tutorial video, I'm going to erase it away in layers. So for example, I'll get rid of her eyelid enough to where I can see it, and also I would reduce the intensity of her eyebrow and her face, the eyes a little bit, just kind of demolish on this thing and bring it in with the colors of her skin and tone. So before I start adding details, because I need you all to see where I'm at and what I'm doing, I'm going to start putting in my lines as I see them. So here we go. Be ready? So we start. Red to the eyelid for whatever reason, and I am no one to ask, I guess. It's why the artist opted to do reds over trying to create an outline for her. I'm using red on the eye intentionally because I can see a lot of hues of red just on the rims of it. Maybe it's just the way that the picture copied over from the net, or maybe it's not, I don't know. Remember, use these videos as at your own pace. Stop it, rewind it as you need to. Don't feel that you have to keep up with the pace. It's a video. That's the beauty of it. And you can opt to moving back and forth as you need to. And you don't need to feel the pressure of trying to keep up pace. But I do need to end it at a certain point. However, that doesn't constrain you. So please remember that. Rewind it as often as you like to understand the gist of it. Whatever pencil marks you don't need, feel free to erase them before we start bringing in more color and hue to the image. Whatever you haven't used, and we've traced over a lot of our lines, but if whatever you don't use, you can get rid of it at this point and keep working towards the rest of it. Now, we have got, now that we've established all of this, let's start working on some of the color tones. So for example, let's put in the red around her eyes, red and pink. So I would start with the red pencil. The crease on her eyelid is very prominent and it has a lot of red hue as per the picture I see. And notice that I'm reducing the pressure as I build it up. It needs to build up right about here. I want to mix this in with some pink. That's why I'm reducing my pressure. I don't want to use it just as what it is. Build up the pressure. Darker, lighter, 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 lighter. Right there. And right under her eye also. Just in this part right here. And so now we bring in the pink. The upper eyelid right on top of her eye, it joins like this. And notice that the pressure here becomes very little to where it's subtle. It's not at all. Even if you color with a color pencil, you want to make sure that you're using your pressure points as you need to. I'm coloring into the eyebrow area for right now because the way that the bust has kind of fared over time is that the eyebrow area feels like it's mixing in with the colors. Of the underskin. Keep your eye on the video. One of the things that I personally believe in is that if you can watch the video for and just observe and not try to keep up with the artist or the teacher, it will help you to kind of capture and understand technique. When we try to follow as our instructor is kind of trying to teach us, a lot of times it tends to get away from us, and we are not able, we feel like, what happened there? And so it's a feeling of feeling lost, and I don't want you to feel that way. Observe first, rewind the video, then pace yourself with the steps and the way that the things are being done. And then move into the rest of it. Again, because it's a bust, it's a sculpture, we all know that. So I always encourage my students to put a light spot into their eyes. But because this is a bust, it's a sculpt, and there is no life in the eyes at this point, so I'm not leaving a white spot intentionally. Again, it's your choice. As an artist yourself, you can opt to leaving certain areas. The color I'm using on the skin itself is called mineral orange, and it's just like a pale bronzy kind of a color. I go in very soft because I want to bring back in a white or a cream color to help me kind of lock in. I'm going over my pink lines with the mineral orange that I've got in my hand, because in her, on the bust, you really don't see, you can feel that there's a sense of pink, however it doesn't translate into that. I'm using a red now on the cheeks over the mineral orange. So wherever I went over with my orange hue to give her like a bronzing effect, I'm going over all of that with mixing into it with my red right now to give a more toned and a tan kind of a skin color hue. Wherever it's not as tanned, I'm trying to reduce the pressure on my hand to make sure that I'm able to blend. Going to use a cream color now to mix in and blend up. After you lay down all your colors, you need a third color, like whether it's a white or a cream or whatever, to bring in, and that literally will mix like a mixing tray everything that you've done thus far. So that's the way to use Prismacolors. I mean, it's like it does the work for you. You don't have to sit there and try to figure out how to get the blending done. You just have to put pressure on it with the colors already applied into the system. Her skin tone doesn't really show as much of like a white or a cream color, so I'm not able to use that. It's more towards a pale yellow kind of a thing. And it's possible that I could be wrong because mine's is merely a photograph. I am not working off of the original sculpt. There are artists that get the opportunity to go and sit actually in the museums and they work on the original pieces. They're able to take in from the original. But at this point, I'm working with a image from the net, and so you can bring in a little bit of your peachiness, but so long as you put down your yellows first, that will be your dominant color, and you can add and blend with the peach as you need to on the flushed areas so that you can get if you trace and contour with a darker color and you let your pencil a lighter pencil go over it multiple times, that will soften up the harshness of the strong color that contours the face. I just need to sharpen my pencil. So hold out a minute, please, everyone. Like, remember I traced my lines. If I go over my lines with a lighter color, it will soften it up. It won't feel like a stark line, a very harsh line that doesn't make sense or something like that. As you go over all your original colors, everything will blend up. Now coming back to our ear, the eyes and the eyebrow thing, you want to pick up your black and very lightly, only the underside of her eyebrow gets any kind of a prominent, like kind of a dark even line, if you could say that. The rest of it is like a hue. So just watch the video for a minute. Look at how light I'm keeping it. That's whatever I see is what I try to do. I don't try to make it to what it's not. That just wouldn't be right. So right there is my and the darkest part in the nostril is only to the top, and then you can reduce the intensity. You don't need to keep it the same color at all. The inside, this part of the earlobe is going to be the shadowed part, whereby it gets some kind of a darkness in there. There is now for the area above her head. Again, protect your picture. Put down something that covers it, because if you don't, it's going to get away from you very fast. A light mix of the mineral orange again. This is like a rusty kind of a color, but then I want to push in my cream color pencil to really get the effect of the cream colors going on here. Remember, lightest colors first and then move into your darkers. So over here, this part is predominantly, I'm going to leave some part of this symbol brighter. That means I won't put any cream on it. And the rest of it, I will put cream on. Then I'll take, again, my mineral orange and start creating a three-dimensionality to the whole thing. Again, if you need me to not put my hand over the work, I understand that completely, no problem, but I need to protect the work under my hand. Please take care that you do the same. But you can rewind the video to the part where it is everything's visible, so as you can create and you can move forward with me. Divide the drawing into whatever you see with your eyes. Trust your eyes. That is the only way to do it. Very light hand with the red. Fill the colors in. Try your best to maintain a one direction, single direction. Here's the thing about coloring. It affects the direction that you use in coloring affects your entire work so much. When the paint's dry, you need to understand it leaves almost like a marking of how the artist handled their paint. That makes all the difference between how people get the final rendering of your artwork. So where you might feel like, well, I can work this way or that way and all that stuff, and I can change stuff, and I can work horizontally, diagonally. Whenever it comes to working on any coloring, the stroke makes a lot of difference, and you need to remember that it will tell the difference apart from a good piece, a really good piece, to a nominal one. Crazy as it sounds, like, can that be the make or break on a really good piece? Yes, it can. Now that I put going to take my mineral orange over my red to give it that rustic red kind of an appeal. And I'm going to crisscross it to make sure that I don't leave any small white remnants that I don't need. And just this much on its own, like the way that it's mixing feels so close to the original bust colors that I would be happy just leaving it like this. If I needed to, I wouldn't worry about it too much at all. Now in regards to the outer areas where we want to show a prominent golden line, take my cream color and just run it over the borders, so to say, so that it's not like it's whatever we leave it to be. We've actually worked on it. So there we have that much of the face done now, and we are going to get in. Now remember, when you look at the original picture, right there, you don't see strong colors on the blue hues at all. If anything, the crown is got some underlying tones again of the orange and then some blue over it. So you're going to be mixing and matching it. Now, if you were to think of it from a composition point of view, you can opt to not doing anything here or here and call it a piece. That can happen. So you don't have to feel like everything has to be rounded up, because technically you've left it at a point which seems to be sort of consistent. So we're going to stop this video here because I feel like I'm shooting into maybe almost an hour of working on this. But the human face is one of the toughest projects to work on. Doesn't matter if it's a real person, a bust of Nefertiti, or an anime. It's hard, but unless you do it, you're never going to be able to get the skill that you want and where you want to reach. So don't be afraid to pick up pen to paper and work on a human face. So I'm going to stop the video at this point, but I hope you enjoy this tutorial. We're going to make other tutorials on the human face from different perspectives, and some will be done completely and totally right to the very last bit of media we want, and others will be stopped at a certain time to allow for students to be able to work in a certain time zone. But watch out for more videos. Be safe.